Hey everyone, welcome back. We have some more tournament results to go over. This last weekend, Sanctuary Gaming Center recently had a 1K tournament with 59 participants, and we're going to be taking a look at the top 8 decks. On the screen here, you can see the top 40 decks with their record, and more importantly, the top 8 decks. We're going to be doing a countdown from the 8th to number 1, taking a look at all the cards in the deck and what I think. You can check Sanctuary Gaming Center out on Facebook, where you'll have access to all their deck lists as well as this breakdown of tournament results. Coming in at number 8, we have an Amber Steel deck piloted by Rachel Trimble. This deck is a pretty classic Amber Steel deck, looking to get all of his creatures on the board early, protect it with some bodyguard mechanics, and then refill your hand with a whole new world. A few notable changes compared to the other meta Amber Steel decks is this plays two different Captain Hooks, both of which are able to challenge aggressively, particularly the 5-dropped that is able to shift onto your 1-drop on turn 3 to get you a ton of value. This deck also plays Rapunzel, which lets you draw cards when healing some of your creatures. And finally, it plays Lefuo, one of the other alterations. That's just a low-drop creature that is inkable and is able to quest for 2 lore. Overall, this is very similar to the other Amber Steel decks and a very strong deck. Coming in at number 7, we have an Amber Ruby deck piloted by Lewis Tuplin. Much like other Ruby Amethyst deck, this deck is looking to outvalue your opponent while getting to the top end and playing some of the best cards in the set. Early on, this deck is looking to trade aggressively with this Archimedes, Sergeant Tibbs, Magic Broom, Gaston, Lefuo. All of these you want to be trading aggressively. Later on, you want to be getting some value out of your Maleficent, your Mickey Mouse with the recurring brooms, the Queen to draw cards. And then you have big threats that do really well on the trade, including Maui as well as Aladdin, getting you lore and them losing lore. Finally, you look to close out the game by banishing their top creature with your Maleficent and tapping down some of their creatures for an extra turn with Elsa to really punch through. This deck also has other good utility cards, including Dragonfire to get rid of some of their best creatures. It has Friends on the other side for some card advantage. Of course, it has Be Prepared that if they do start to overrun the board, you're able to reset. And finally, you have Magic Mirror for card advantage and White Rabbit's Pocket Watch to get your big threats out and questing the first turn they come out. The 6th place deck, piloted by Scott Reed, is also an Amethyst Ruby deck, very similar to the last one we saw. Some notable changes is this deck has dropped the Magic Brooms, as well as the Mickey, has added a Jafar, which I'm not a huge fan of, and has also added Ursula's Cauldron, which has started to grow on me. I think if I were to run this deck, I would certainly keep Mickey in, as well as the Brooms. I think you just get far too much value with them, and it also helps prevent you from decking out in those longer games. Coming in at number 5, we have another Ruby Amethyst deck, this time piloted by Brandon Pauly. A few notable changes here compared to the previous deck we just saw is this one adds back in the Magic Brooms, but interestingly, it doesn't add in the Mickeys. I don't know how big of a fan I am of that. It still plays the Jafars. It does add some Zeus to get some early challenges out. And most importantly, I think, is it plays the Goofy, which allows you to get rid of some of the evasive creatures that might be able to chip through over time to get them to 20. You're able to challenge early here and neutralize that threat. As you can see, the Ruby Amethyst deck is very popular in the current meta and is doing very well. So if you're going to enter a tournament, this might be worth taking a look at. Next up, we have an Emerald Amethyst deck that I'm a big fan of. It comes in at number 4, piloted by Stefan Hadley. I'm a big fan of this deck for a few reasons. One, it's one of the cheaper decks. You're not playing multiple Maleficents and Elsas and these legendaries. And two, it can finish off the game quite quickly. The overall theme is a lot of evasive cards and a lot of cards that when they're challenging into you, they have to pay a price, either by discarding a card or banishing a creature when banished with Flynn Rider and Cheshire Cat, as well as Gootsko. We've seen all these cards before. The Amethyst gives you a little twist, but it lets you keep alive with card draw. In case you do come against a Be Prepared that wipes your board, you're able to kind of refill your hand with the Maleficents. You're able to get cards in your hand with Friends on the other side. You're kind of able to keep in some of these longer games while still trying to close out very quickly. I've played against similar decks myself, and this deck always gives me a challenge. And if you're looking for a deck that's a bit cheaper on the budget, this might be it for you. Coming in 3rd place, we have another Emerald Amethyst deck, piloted by Gareth Shaw. Overall, this deck is very, very similar. The only big changes is you lose one Befuddle and you lose one Rafiki to put in two Peter Pans to do two things. Once, if you need to be on the defensive, obviously you can trade off their evasive creatures, but this also gives you some of that evasive staying power that you don't need to rely on a Pascal or creature along those lines, that you can just get those extra last few points of damage in. Overall, I think this deck is a bit of an upgrade. I'm not a huge fan of Befuddle, and Rafiki is good on the trade, but it is only questing for one lore, so getting that one lore evasive is always a benefit. Coming in at number 2, we have an Amber Steel deck, but with a bit of a new twist. Rather than be the go wide, dump your hand, and then refill with a whole new world, this is more of a control shell. It plays a lot of early creatures like Captain Hook that can trade up, as well as Prince Eric that trades up on the challenge. Both of these you're going to want to be challenging aggressively with. Ariel's excellent both as a singer as well as getting songs into your hand. You have Tinkerbell, which is a target for the shift and can also dig through your deck to get you answers. You have Rapunzel for some of your bigger creatures, and we certainly do have bigger creatures in our deck, with Rapunzel having 5 toughness, Hans having 3 toughness, Moana having 6 toughness, Beast having 4 toughness, Cerberus having 6 toughness, and as you can see, the list kind of goes on from there. There's lots of cards and lots of times you're going to be able to heal and replenish your hand. Hans is just getting in for 2 lore and pinging damage. We have a lot of ways to do damage here. We've got Smash, we've got Tinkerbell, we've got Hans, we've got Grab Your Swords. We're dealing a lot of damage. We do have Beast in the deck to deal with some of their items that we're not able to deal with. And then obviously we have Stitch Surfer, which is an excellent card. We do have multiple songs here for Ariel to grab. I think overall this is a very strong deck. I haven't seen it played yet, but I can certainly see the synergy here, and it's no wonder that it got second. And coming in at number 1, we have another Amber Steel deck, this time piloted by Marlon Bayer Rieger. I'm sure I butchered that name, but this deck is very similar to the second place deck. Obviously, it's done very well in the tournament. It went 8-1 in Swiss, so it did fantastic. Very much the same shell. A few notable changes. It drops 2 Prince Erics for 2 Mickey Mouses, which is just, again, a bit bigger of a body, still inkable, questing for 2 lore. And otherwise, it does a bit of shuffling with some of the songs and actions, but overall, much the same. So there we have it. That is a recap of the top 8 decks from this 1K tournament that just happened this last weekend. Few big takeaways to note. One is obviously we see this Amber Steel control shell really taking hold and getting first and second. Very impressive deck that I'm a big fan of, and certainly I want to give it a look. Second is the Emerald Amethyst deck is still doing well with its evasive themes and card advantage and card draw. It's no surprise the Ruby Amethyst deck is seen in 3 of the top 8 deck lists here. Overall, it looks like the quality of decks at this tournament was very strong. Again, if you'd like to get more information, check them out on Facebook. And that is it for this video. If you like this video, please hit like. If you really like this video, please hit subscribe. I'd love to hear from you what your favorite top 8 deck was, and I'll see everyone next time. Take me back to a day when we weren't alone. Take me back to an age when the world felt small. Way back before